complexity of the situation, how we need strong leadership as well. And yet, Dongyu, who is the UN Food and Agricultural Organization as well, the DG, of course, you are trying to put a framework together, sir. You're trying to put a framework together with, what, 130 plus nations. But we've already heard this is pretty complex, and we have very diverse countries and farming systems to deal with. Your role is very difficult, sir, and convoluted.
Thank you, Stephen, moderate. I'm pleased to be here and also join the House scale the actions to transform agri-food system. Even agri-food is more complex than you expected than the pure food system. Improve the lives of farmers in an inclusive and resilient manner by grow, nourish, and sustainable together. As Amina mentioned several statistical numbers, you also, that's come from the FAO flagship publication already. I don't want to repeat it here again. But addressing the future of agri-food systems requires a holistic view, covered many topics, such as agricultural production, climate change, and value chain efficiency, demographic inclusion, consumer demand, land use, biodiversity, and so on, and innovation, and also transport, pest, disease, nutrition, and health. So we have to act now. And the COVID-19 pandemic forced us to speed up the action. More and more million people still going hungry during the pandemic. And sometimes too much of food we produce is lost and wasted. It will be threatened to reverse the progress achieved over the last 2 decades. FAO, we are here. We see this crisis, force all the members to step up for the green recovery and agri-food system transformation. So we not just initiate new strategy frameworks, we will move forward to achieve the SDGs, especially SDG 1, SDG 2, and SDG 10. We will focus on the new strategy based on the new vision for betters: better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life by hand-in-hand initiative. You say, you're right, correctly. We have 194 members, and we have to build a one FAO. We have to consider all the members, they really have a voice to hear, and they are interested. We have to offer the service to them. Land is a mother for human being and biodiversity. It's the base of the economy, society, and the environment, and the vital for productivity and sustainable of agri-food systems. So I think innovation on differentiation, use of different types of land, from the fertile land to the semi-dry land, combines human creative technology, science, and entrepreneurship. In that sense, we need the private engagement. And also we need a lot of help from the civil society and academy. So we want to build a bigger partnership. That's why the FAO, when I come to the office, we started hand-in-hand initiative. And that's also, we offer the hand-in-hand geospatial data platform, a data lab for statistical innovation, and also SMAP developed together with Google. And that's where we will provide the members with valuable real-time data that support the strategic decision-making. Digital FAO has been established within unprecedented pace. During past years, we now fully running on digital with 6 UN languages simultaneously. So next time we can offer the service for you if CNBC willing to work with us globally. Yeah.
Absolutely. Count me in, sir. Count me in. And you've already said, I'm there. Trust me, it's very important to me. But you've already said something quite startling, and I will come back to you with this as well, because everybody, if we need a sense of urgency, we've just heard it there. Not only is the status quo not acceptable, but we are at risk of reversing 2 decades of progress. I think that is a startling comment, sir. Startling comment. I will come back to you on this a little bit later on as well. Wiebe Draijer is the chairman of the managing board of Rabobank, which I'm told is the largest agricultural bank working in the food and agricultural sector based in the Netherlands. Wiebe, you had a problem a few years ago. Not enough people were interested in investing and providing the finance for new, cleaner, greener initiatives, especially in farming. Now, I guess you've got the opposite problem, sir.
Huh? No. Mute.
Wiebe Draijer?
There you go. Can you hear me now? Yes.
I can hear you now, sir.
There you go. Thank you for that question, because I think we are in a luxurious position as a planet that there is now abundant capital available to be invested. And I think the role of finance is now also getting full recognition as a partner of the transition that needs to take place. We can offer capital to the required investments from large-scale investment, but also micro-level investments via new digital technology. We can also help in categorizing these green loan categories and channeling the financing to green investments so that it becomes transparent, as I think Larry Fink also called for one standard in his letter last week. But what I would want to take as an engineer coming into finance, I would like to take the opportunity to explain the connection between finance and the transitions that we talked about that are so urgent. Because there are still some conversions needed to get that abundance of capital into where it's now needed, the transitions themselves. And there are three transformations required that I want to talk about. First, when you talk about basic needs of financing and investors, it's the risk return. It is true now that the return of these investments can arguably be made. The return is no longer an issue when it comes to these transitions that we talk about in the food supply chain. The trouble largely is the risk. When farmers shift their practice, it typically takes 2 or 3 seasons before they are in the new zone. And that is a risky phase, and they're volatile. And I think as Excellency so eloquently articulated before, is that we rarely think about the farmer. We need to help and support the farmer to bridge the gap of risk. That's one of the conversions that is needed. And partners in the financial sector need to work together to de-risk some of these transitions. The second conversion that is needed is that of duration. Many of the transitions that we talk about have a length of time that a typical bank normally doesn't cope with. So we need connections between banks and institutional investors to get to longer duration times of these transitions. And that is possible. We've done it in the offshore wind arena, where you have a building phase and a running phase. And the third transition that I want to talk about is the pricing in of externalities, of burdens to the planet, of social costs that I think also our chairman talked so eloquently about in the beginning. And that can be done. And one of the externalities is the price of carbon. We're seeing many corporates commit to Paris by voluntary reductions. There is now an abundance of need of this reduction of CO2 footprint by large corporates in the Western world. And we need to bridge that to, for example, the Costa Ricas of the world and the farmers in Brazil and Argentina and North America. And this is what I want to talk about for just a few minutes. And this is what we call a carbon bank. The world needs a system that connects these demands for carbon reduction with where it can actually be done by farmers in Costa Rica, by creating new nature projects, by farmers in North America and South America. And this transition is what we're building on as Rabobank. And we build an alliance together with the World Economic Forum to create this carbon trading platform, where there are agencies involved with the certification of these projects, where there are big companies involved that have a need to reduce, and there's obviously institutions involved with creating a trading platform that needed. This system, I think, yes, it's urgent, but there's almost a crystallization point, a crystallization point. If we trigger that system that I now talked about, this could really accelerate the transition that food goes through. Farmers can benefit significantly from getting a fair reward for their contribution to more sustainable practices. It's substantial. It could double the profit of a farmer if they get a fair reward for the externalities that they help reduce. And that, I think, is more than an urgent opportunity. It is a crystallization point that we're now about to embark on. And I'm hoping that the Food Summit this year will be the place where we can talk about the dimensions of that new system that will be a crystallization point to accelerate the transition that you talked about.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Before we get to Ramon Laguarta, I'm just going to say to Agnes, just have a think about what Wiebe just said. Is that financing there, or there's still big gaps as well, of course, in the amount of financing that's getting to some of those smaller players as well? But I do want to get to Ramon Laguarta first as well. He is, of course, the chairman and chief executive officer of PepsiCo. I've just a little insight for our viewers now. I've already talked to him off camera about the very exciting news that PepsiCo have already done this week, a product, I'm going to say it here, I really like it. It's a non-meat burger, and now they're working with them. So I'm very excited about your news there. But you want to go beyond this as well. And what I think is fascinating is how much of the food system change is going to be led by companies such as yourself, and how much of it is being led by the consumer as well, Ramon.
Thank you, Steve. Listen, I think the way we're looking at this transformation and building on what everybody else said, I think we have to play on the farmer and we have to play on the consumer. I think those are the two big entities that would really drive the full ecosystem change, right? So when you look at the farmer, and obviously we've heard that there is multitude of farmers from very large super scale companies to very small holders that really require different needs, and their business model is very different. So we need to solve for all of them. I think there is a need to be local and very granular. So solutions cannot be top down, solutions need to be bottom up. But there's a few ideas that we're testing with multiple collaborators, and many of them are here sitting around the table, that can be investable and scalable. And let me tell you a few, so that we can get to the debate. The first idea is there's a need to make the farmer aware of the new techniques, the new ways of doing things that they're out there, they're not landing in their particular space. The concept of demonstration farms is proven to be very powerful. So building demonstration farms where we have the new techniques, and where let's say neighborhood farmers go and learn from their peers. That's a huge concept. We have many demonstration farms across the world. That's a very powerful concept. Second concept that we're working on with the World Economic Forum and some other colleagues is innovation hubs. Innovation hubs, there is a lot of money and a lot of startup, a lot of ingenuity going into fintechs, going into other fields. There's not enough going into agri-tech. And I think we can play a role, large companies with the public sector as well, to build innovation hubs, to bring technology and innovation closer to the farmer. And I think that's a big idea. We're starting with different parts of the world. We're leading one in Colombia, but there's multiple efforts going in other parts. Then to what Wiebe said earlier, there is a financial need and there's a carbon market need. And those two are two ways to enable the transformation for the farmers, make sure that they capitalize on the potential benefits they can drive to the broader ecosystem, and they capture the benefit of it. Especially the one around carbon is critical. We need the farms to deliver higher yield, better use of the land, and then sequestration of carbon. And that's an ecosystem that we need to incentivize somehow. I think we need to build a market around that. When you think about the consumer towards the other end, and that's a responsibility as well of the large food companies, but everybody that owns brands and has a consumer impact. Consumers, I think we've done a good job over many years. It took us a lot of years to make them aware of the nutritional values of products. And it took us, but you can see more or less in most of the products around the world, good nutritional information. So consumers can make their own decisions, their own choices around different parts of the day, different moments. They can make their choices and balance their diets as they prefer to do. There is very little knowledge on environmental footprint of products. I mean, consumers don't really know, and therefore they don't valorize the environmental footprint of a product. I mean, we're not generating demand towards the products, the brands, the supply chains that really are more protective of the environment. We need to find a way. We're working on it. There is technology can help us now understand the sourcing of products, the ingredients, the movement of goods across the whole supply chain, and therefore the environmental footprint of that product. I think that if we can move consumers through awareness and through product innovation, as you said, some of the things we're doing, but we're doing that with our own portfolio as well, legume snacks, different cereal breakfast, different juice products. We can move demand towards spaces that are good for the consumer, good for the planet. That is a huge idea. Brands play a huge role. Consumer information plays a huge role. And we need to move demand to those spaces, valorize sustainability, sustainable products. And that will generate, as President Alvarado was saying, better products, like he was referring to the coffee, better products for the planet, better for the consumers, higher prices, better livelihoods for farmers. I think there's an ecosystem that I'm positive. Listen, if I want to send a message, it's a message of optimism. I've never seen so many conversations between the public and the private sector in the last 6-8 months, enabled by the World Economic Forum, but also, Mrs. Calabata, thank you for what you're doing with the UN Innovation, the UN Summit. I think the 5 tracks, the leadership you've put in place, the milestones, the clear, the dialogue spaces, that's going to help us to really make a lot of positive traction over the next few months. And I'm very optimistic of what we can do.
You've made my job very easy there, Ramon, because I'm going straight to Agnes Calabata, who's the special envoy for UN Food Systems Summit as well. And Agnes, I thought the comments I've heard already from our excellent speakers really underlines what you feel is one of the priorities, and that is awareness about these innovations, awareness of the financing available, awareness of the environmental footprint, et cetera, as well. So a lot of the obstacles are being overcome, or aren't they?
Thank you, Steve. And let me just start by building on what Ramon has said. And thank you, DSG. If I'm doing a good job, it's because I'm standing on someone's shoulders, and I just don't know how you do it. I just want to say thank you. You're doing so much for all of us. And from a Food Systems Summit perspective, we wouldn't have done as much as we've done without the support we are getting from you. So you all need to know that this lady is doing amazing work. So now, going to the Food Systems Summit, it was launched the year before last with 3 major objectives. We are behind on SDGs, and the DSG has said it. And despite all our efforts to put our best foot forward, nutrition is what we are doing with nutrition is still creating lots of obesity. And now we are actually talking about what is happening there as being a pandemic, a slow pandemic that is underlying the whole COVID pandemic as we know it. In fact, fueling the COVID pandemic. We know that we are behind on hunger. 6 years in a row, we've been seeing hunger increasing, but also we know we are impacting climate change. So the SG was extremely concerned about this, and he requested for 2 things. He said, you do this summit and do 2 things. You must take it to the people. People must know what is at stake. But like you all have said, people make these decisions. Each of us makes 3 decisions 3 times a day to eat, and those decisions impact our food systems. So it really must be a people's summit. It really must be about decisions people make. And Ramon has just said how people don't understand the environmental footprint. Just think about it. An avocado here to come from Africa to go to Europe must be size 22. Only 10% of avocados produced in Africa make size 22. What happens to all the water that goes to producing all the other avocados? So really educating people and helping them understand how they're impacting the food system is extremely important. Number 2, he wanted this to be a solutions summit, meaning we really need to step out of our comfort zone and come up with solutions that are going to help us come through. We've been discussing this the whole week through the GCA that was happening. The imperative to invest in food systems there's never been a better time. For every dollar we invest in food systems today, will save us $6 of trying to deal with damage that happens if we don't do the right thing. So I don't know what would be better to do then than we can do now. So we must do what we need to do now. We've put in place 5 action tracks in terms of responding to his request for solutions. Those 5 action tracks cut across the 5 critical areas that impact our food system. And we put in place dialogues at country level in every country. And I'm really grateful that partners have stepped forward and are funding how these countries dialogue. But the basic principle here is countries get an opportunity to define what they are doing and to define the solutions they put forward. People get to discuss these things. Indigenous people, communities, farmers, all these people get to discuss in what we are calling independent dialogues. And the solutions are already known. Take the example of Costa Rica. We just had the conversation that is happening around what they are doing for nature and climate change. The example of Colombia, around what they are doing on biodiversity, or the example of Vietnam and the partnerships they are creating with Grow Asia. But also what you just said, Ramon, what was just launched here, this initiative that was just launched here. These are all things we can build on, and there's so much more. So the action tracks right now are scouting the environment to come up with those ideas that are already there, that are scalable, that can help us impact really create a transition in our food system as fast as we can. And we have a whole group of experts in science that are going to be there to tell us that this direction we are taking is actually the direction we should be taking, that we are not creating more problems in the system. So you talked about finance. The solutions are here. We already know what we are doing. We have more money in our system than we know what we know to do with. So the best thing is to put that money to good use and transition our food system rather than start paying for damages that result from a dysfunctional food system. So there you have it.
Fantastic. Agnes Calibata, thank you very much indeed for that. So many questions. I'm very aware that we officially have about 5 minutes. I might be able to stretch it to 6 or 7 if I'm very lucky. So briefest answers, if I may, from all of you as well. I read a Ford's comment. I thought it was extraordinary. It said food system produces more GHG than any other sector, but neglected by policymakers, talking about COP21. They were blind to the footprint of food. I'm taking it with COP26 this year and with the Food System Summit this year. That is a thing of the past, not of the present or the future. Let's start off with His Excellency, the President of Costa Rica. Do you believe that policymakers are still blind, as they've been accused of being back in COP21, which I was at in 2015?
Well, I do believe that's what we are trying to change, actually, with spaces and debates like this, and with the summit that the Secretary General is inviting. That is what we need to change now, and put it in the conversation of climate change and put it in the conversation of biodiversity. I briefly want to link and build upon two things mentioned, one by Amina Mohammed and another by Wiebe. And I'll put it in 3 words: risk, farmers, subsidies. And I believe that's one of the key bottlenecks. For example, Central America this year was hit by 2 hurricanes, the whole of Central America. Many farmers lost everything. And last year, the 2019, previous year, Central America was hit by the Niña phenomenon, which is drought. So you had drought one year, the next year you had hurricanes and lots of humidity and rain, and then you go to the bank expecting to have some money or loans, and they say, you're too risky. We're not going to lend you, or we're going to lend you very high interest rates. And on the other hand, and I'll try to be brief, but I think this is a key part of the conversation. On the other hand, they say, okay, you're too risky, let's import whatever we need. But then what happens with the livelihoods and the rural communities and women and indigenous people? And I think also COVID-19 changed that conversation. Why? Particularly at the beginning of the pandemic. Because at the beginning of the pandemic, when the global chains of logistics were closed, what was the first thing that happened to people, to their decisions? Everybody went to the supermarket, to the marketplace, started buying food or putting it. So people reminded themselves the importance of food security locally. But if we don't fix how we finance, how we take risks for farmers, not only thinking of the financial impact, but of the global impact, and if we do not take the conversation of subsidies to a level, for example, of trade, international trade, or World Trade Organization, vis-a-vis climate change as well, we're not necessarily going to fix this.
Sir?
So I think that is a conversation we need to have.
Oh, and I would love to do it over the next 2 hours, but I've got about 4
I'm
minutes.
sorry for taking so long.
No. There is nothing that has been said. That's the point that I don't want to expand upon. This is my problem. I've got a 1 hour show and I've got to go longer. Wiebe Draijer, do you want to just comment on that, reply to that as well? That's the problem with financiers, isn't it? There's loads of money sloshing around now, but they have a very different attitude to risk. You said that we need new models, transformative models of how we risk assess these situations and lending to farmers across the world. We haven't got your mic at the moment, sir. Could we have Wiebe's mic?
There you go. And
good, we're there, sir.
Thanks for that summary. And I think you're right, but the majority of the money is still stuck in buckets that can't be met to the needs of the farmers' profiles and the risk that they have. And so I think the real need is that governments and government agencies think about de-risking as the investors get an access to investing. Subsidies tend to be disruptive for flow. What I wanted to say in one sentence only and disclose is, I think it's now time that the finance community becomes part of that solution and not as typically referred to as when it gets difficult, they're part of a problem. I think that is possible, but we need to sit at the table while we design these new systems for carbon trading, while we design the new risk systems to de-risk, and while we design the new systems to match the optimal duration of finance so that it actually can flow. The money is there, we need to map it on the need of the transformations, and it is possible.
Thank you very much indeed for being brief there. I've got a hard wrap for 2 minutes, everybody. I've got a hard wrap. Dongyu, I'll come to you in a moment on your concerns about regressing as well. But on that front, Ramon, we're not regress in corporate world, are we? Regardless of the administration, regardless of who is leading, regardless of the faddish attitudes of some corporates as well. We're moving in one direction now. It's irreversible, isn't it, sir?
Yeah. I think the train has left the station, and I see more and more CEOs driving this change from two dimensions. One is personal values. I think there's a lot of us, and I feel obviously very, very close to this transition from my values point of view. But also, if you think about a business case, risk management of your company, if we want to maximize the value of our companies 15 years from now, we better include climate risk and some of these other threats into our the way we run our companies, and we change the model. So I think that is clearly, and you can see this in the commitments that we're all making externally and how we're making this operational in our capital allocation, in the capabilities we're building, in our relationship with our farmers and consumers and customers. So I think the full ecosystem is moving. You see board of directors talking about it. You see investors starting to make the companies much more accountable on their ESG commitments. So I think the full ecosystem is moving. And that's what I said earlier. I'm positive, optimistic that the train has left this station, that now when the private sector takes ownership of this transition, I think we're going to see much more movement, right? We tend to be entities that make things happen efficiently, and with very clear commitments and productivity targets. So I think it is positive that public and private sector are really talking. There is more trust, I think, between these two units, and I think in this combination will drive success. So I see optimism.
Thank you, Ramon. Dongyu, final word to you. Everything you've heard, surely, sir, you don't think we're going to reverse 2 decades of progress?
Thank you. I was scientist, though. I listening to the president and also the Ramon and the others. Solution. We need the driving force. Driving force come to consumers. And when the people climbing the mountain, we have 4 forces to move the direction. And then the bridge is a digital approach. Innovation of the policy, innovation of the business model, innovation of technology. So I wanted to take the Costa Rica as a champion. If you start with the innovation of policy, innovation of the business model by digital, and then let's reverse all the business of the transformation agro-food system from the consumers down to the farmers. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much indeed. Look, I didn't know if I was going to come out of this panel worried about the urgency, worried about where we were, or excited by the opportunity. The answer is very clear to me. I am stunningly excited by the opportunity. Thank you so much for just great contributions and a great education. May I just thank you all in no particular order. The Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina, Mohammed, thank you very much indeed for kicking off as well. Agnes Calibata, who's the Special Envoy for UN Food Systems Summit. We're with you all the way on this one as well. Ramon Laguarta, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer at PepsiCo. I'm very excited about the new ventures as well and where we're going with this as well. Wiebe, Draijer, Chairman of the Managing Board of Rabobank. Financiers can change for the future. I know they can. And His Excellency, Carlos Alvarado, Alvarado Quesada, who's the president of Costa Rica. Thank you, sir. Your country is a model of what we should do. And Dongyu, the Director General of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. Count me in, sir. Anything you need. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you. Let's make a digital world. Thank you. Very good.